So you want to start paying off your debt. You want to pay off your debt and you want to know how. You want to know what are some methods, some debt payment methods that you can use, as well as some tips and tricks and even some examples. You want to get straight to the point. You want to make life easier. And if that is you, this video is just for you. Hi guys, my name is Mo. I'm 27. I'm working on my financial freedom journey. I work to pay off my student loan debt. I have paid off all of my consumer debt with my credit cards as well as my car loan within a year. And in this video, I want to give you guys some educational purposes on how you can pay off your debt. If you're interested in watching, make sure you all stay tuned. First, we're going to start talking about the 3 different methods in which you can pay off your debt, right? But first, let's talk about debt, just in case some people have it confused. So debt is money you owe back, money that was loaned to you, and that can be a car loan, a house loan. It could be considered a mortgage, which is a home loan. It could be student loans. It could be credit card debt, right? So this is what I'm encompassing when we're talking about debt. So let's get into these methods. Method number 1 is the avalanche method, right? So just as we envision an avalanche, you start off with the first debt that has the highest interest rate. Okay, this does not mean you stop paying off your other loans or stop paying on your other loans or other debt. This means you put extra payment towards this one debt that has the highest interest rate. The pros of this is paying off a debt that has the highest interest rate means that you can accumulate less interest with due time, right? The higher the interest means the higher the money you're going to end up paying. So this is method 1, the avalanche method. Method 2 is the snowball method. When you pay off the lowest of all the debts from least to greatest, okay? So if you have 4 different debts, your lowest is $100, you pay that off first. You're still paying the minimum on all the other debts. But then once you're done paying the minimum, you go and you put that extra $100 that you were putting towards that one debt that is now paid off towards the other debts, okay? And the pro about this is it raises morale, it raises a momentum. But the con is if you have other debts that have higher interest, this can be problematic. And then the third method is consolidation. This is when you take all the debts that you have, you try to consolidate them with one company. For example, different companies like American Express, Capital One, if you call them, you say, hello, I have this debt for this debt for that, this credit card debt. I would like them to be consolidated into one debt. The pro for this is, depending on which company you talk to, you may or may not get a lowest interest rate. You also will only have one interest rate compared to the 4 different credit cards you might have had. So we briefly just talked about the avalanche method, the snowball method, and the consolidation method. So I'm going to go ahead and give an example of a guy named Joe, and we're going to talk about all of his debt and the different ways, the 3 different methods that he can pay off his debt. Okay, so first thing we have is Joe. Okay, Joe is like, listen, I'm trying to get out of debt, help me. And that's all of us. So first we're going to talk about, first he has his debt. We're going to get into his credit card debt in order from least to greatest. So first things first, Home Depot. He has a credit card with Home Depot. The interest rate with this credit card is 9%, which is really good for a credit card. His balance is $500 and his minimum payment is $25. Second thing, he now also has a credit card with Gap, because who doesn't love shopping at the Gap? It's 18%. His balance is $985 and his minimum payment is, again, $25. Next card, he has Capital One. With Capital One, his interest is going to be 16%, he owes $1,320, and his minimum payment is $70. The next card he has is with American Express. On this, his interest is 24%. He owes $2,500, and his minimum is $100. Those are his credit cards. After that, he has his car loan. With his car loan, he owes $15,000. He has a 6% interest rate, and his bill every month is $400. So, 25, 25, 70, 100, and 400 is his bill. These are his interest rates. This is the name. I butchered the word capital, but that's okay. You guys get the vibe. This is his, Home Depot, Gap, Capital One, Amex, and his car loan. Yeah, and these are his credit cards from least to greatest. So now that we have that in mind, we're also going to go ahead and pull out a calendar. We're pulling out a calendar for when each card of Joe's or each debt is due. This is important. You need to know when each debt is due so you can make sure you pay the money needed. So Home Depot, we're going to say is due on the 1st. Home Depot. On the 4th, we're saying Gap. We're just going to put it all in order, y'all. And then on the 7th, Capital One. And then we have on the 9th, his American Express. And then we have his car loan. We'll say on the 15th. Okay. 2nd, 4th, 7th, 9th, and 15th are the dates for all of his, the due dates, right? Now, let's get our calculator out. Let's begin to add up how much he has to pay minimal, right? This is the minimal amount. So tip number 1 is never pay the minimal amount if you have the option, right? If you have the ability to not pay the minimal, I wouldn't do it. So for his minimal amounts, it's gonna be $620. 4, 5, 7, 6. Yes. 5. Yeah. Just make sure I'm 550 plus 70. Okay. So this all equals $620. Now, we talked to Joe. We're like, Joe, do not pay the minimum amount. And so the question is, why not pay the minimum amount? Well, we want to make sure that we address the interest. You're going to be getting charged interest for the balance. That's what credit card companies do. That's what lenders do. They interest you, and then they make money based off that interest. You're trying to pay off your debt before, you only want to pay the $500. You don't want to pay the $500 plus another 9%. You don't want to pay $515. Or that keeps adding up, and the interest keeps continuing. So we asked Joe, how much extra do you have to put? He's like, listen, if my bill is $620, I can do $720. This means that Joe has an extra $100 he can put towards his debt. So he has to pay the 25, 25, 70, 100, and 400 anyway to make sure he doesn't, miss any of his bill due dates. Now we asked Joe, what method do you want to use? Do you want to use the Avalanche method? Meaning that you pay off the highest, the debt with the highest interest rate first. If that is the case, he would start with his Amex if it was the Avalanche, right? That means that everything will get the minimal payment. He would give $25 to Home Depot, $25 to Gap, $70 to Capital One, $400 to his car loan, and then he would give $200 a month to American Express. Because 100 is due, he already has that 100, and then he has an extra 100. So he would give $200 a month to American Express until that $2,500 is paid off. Okay, So that's what that would mean for Avalanche. So then once he's done paying off his American Express, that extra 100 he was putting towards American Express will then go to Gap, because the next highest interest rate is Gap at 18%. He will then do, he was putting 200 towards here, so now he's gonna put 200 towards Gap, right? We're going here. 100 is what's due. He has an extra 100. That's 200 towards his Amex. Now that Amex is paid for, hypothetically, because we're going on Avalanche, now he has another $200 that he can put a month towards his Gap. Okay? So time has elapsed. He's paid off his Amex and his Gap. The next one he's going to do is his Capital One. So now he has $225. So what we're doing here is once you cross off one card and you're putting the extra money you have to it, as well as the what's due on it, you're going to put that plus the minimum, because you were already paying the minimum anyway. So you have this money. So we're going to cross off the Gap. So now he has $225 plus 70 to put towards his Capital One. So 225 plus 70. So now he has $295 to put towards his Capital One, because that's the next one that's highest in interest. So once he pays that off, he's going to go ahead and put $295 plus 25 towards his Home Depot. So he's going to do $320 towards his Home Depot every month until that 500 and something is paid off. Now, mind you, it's no longer $500 because we've taken time to pay off the Amex. We've taken time to pay off the Gap. We've taken time to pay off the Capital One. And so now I'm sure it's higher than $500 now because of that 9%. Okay? So remember, every time you do this, you're paying the minimum amount for the cards that you're not putting your extra debt payments towards, because the bills are still due. So that is an example of the Avalanche debt payoff method. The snowball method would mean he would start with this one. He would start with Home Depot. So we're going to put snowball, right? So snowball, again, it just means that you start off with the lowest amount of debt first. You pay off that lowest amount of debt. So he has $100 extra, and he already has to put $25 towards all this other stuff. That means he's putting $125 towards his Home Depot. It's $500. He could do that within a few months. Boom, that's paid off. Or maybe a little over a few, maybe 4 months or whatever. And that should be paid off. Then he would move to the next debt. The next debt, in order from least to greatest of how much is due, would be Gap, the $985. And then he moves to the next one. Same way, still paying the minimums for all the other ones, and then giving that extra 100 towards the next one on top of whatever that minimum was prior to. And then with consolidation is he's gonna call a company. And honestly, consolidation is its own trick, okay? You definitely have to call different companies, advocate for yourself for starters, tell them why you need this, and just, again, advocate for yourself as to, why this would benefit them and you. Them purchasing your debt from all. So if he called Amex and he's like, listen, or why would you call Amex 24%? But let's say he calls Capital One and calls Capital One, and you're like, listen, I have this, and even this. Can you please consolidate my debt or whatever? There are different templates online. I will have some resources below in the description to help you guys out if debt consolidation is something you are looking at. And then that way, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different debts with 5 different interest rates, he would be able to have one interest rate and one debt to pay, at one time. He doesn't have to worry about which one to pay, doing Avalanche, Snowball, none of that. So this is an example of the different debt payoff methods. Now, some tips and tricks, because as we all know, getting out of debt can be hard. It can be exhausting. So the first tip is just to be consistent. When you make up your mind on what way you want to pay off your debt, be consistent, okay? keep going. It's an uphill battle sometimes, but you have to keep fighting the battle to win the battle. Okay, guys? Keep going. Don't miss a month. And I know that can be hard. Sometimes automating payments can help you, but don't miss a month. Make sure you keep going. Be consistent. And that's what you have to do to see change. And the second tip and trick that I would give you guys, you are already trying to pay off all of this debt. If we calculate how much Joe owes, he has $500 plus $985 plus $1,320 plus $2,500 plus $15,000. That's $20,305. That's not bad, but that could be a huge burden, okay? So stop swiping the credit cards. If you need to, cut them up, right? Learn how to be realistic with your credit card spending, whether it's Home Depot or it's Capital One and you're getting your groceries and your gas. Stop getting more debt. And the last tip and trick that I have, which I'm going to show you guys on this calendar, is to not make the minimum payment if this is the debt you are focusing on. Like I previously showed you. If you're not focusing on that debt, if you're doing Snowball, you're going to do more than the minimum for Home Depot. But if you're doing Avalanche, you're going to do the more than the minimum for Amex. Moral of the story is do not do the minimum payment. With that, I guess tip trick 3A, 3B would also be to divvy up your payments, right? And I'm going to give you an example here. We're going to focus on the car loan. So let's highlight this car loan orange. I've said this before to people, but sometimes it doesn't resonate well. So his car loan, Joe's car loan, is due on the 15th. Right now, it's a Tuesday. It's going to be $400. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Tuesdays in the month of November. Okay? So let's start off with this. If you don't have any extra money to put towards the car loan, like whether it's your Snowball debt, you're really focusing on it or not, so you're just going to take the $400 and you're going to divide that by 5. That's going to be $80. So what does Mo do? I'm going to put $80 every Tuesday towards my car loan. And you're probably like, that makes no sense because the car loan is due on the 15th. Obviously, you want to start the month before. But let's also put some pay dates in here. Let's say you get paid every other Friday. Okay. So let's say you get paid every other Friday. And we're going to put paid, and we're going to highlight this blue. Okay. Trying to prove the point to y'all. So let's say you get paid every other Friday. Your last paycheck in October covered all of these bills. So this paycheck would have to cover your car loan, right? So you're like, listen, I got to pay it off the 15th. That's just what I'm going to do. Okay, the first time while you're trying to get into this mindset, that's what you do, right? You put all the money towards it because you don't want to be late on your bill. I'm going to put asterisks here to prove the point. So you pay off with that first paycheck or the nearest paycheck, right? Yeah, I'm going to pay the $400 on my car loan. But then I'm also going to save an $80, boom, to put towards the next month car loans. Are y'all tracking? Okay. And you're like, oh, that's more money. And it's not more money. It just makes you divide up your money. And you're like, why would I pay towards my car loan every week or every other week, right? That's 5 Tuesdays in that month. But if you want to do 400 divided by 2, you can just do 200, $200 from that last paycheck in October, $200 from this paycheck. That would be $400. That's how much the car loan is. So you have to figure out what's going to work best with you. What I did was I took how much my car loan was. I divided it by 4. Like there's 4 weeks. Usually there's only 4 Tuesdays or whatever in a month. I divided it by 4 and I put that amount every week towards my car loan. The benefit of that is it's slicing up your interest. The con is, depending on who your loan servicer is, you may or may not be able to do it, right? I had TD Auto Finance. I was able to go in there every week, put a little bit of money down. It sliced up my interest, okay? And that's what we want to do. We want to pay what we owe and not all this interest. So it can be confusing. And like I said, if you're starting off 1 month, you have to prepare your money, right? You have to split up your money and be able to do it. You can't just say, oh, it's November, I'm going to start now. Especially if your bill is due in the middle of the month like this. If your bill was due on the 30th and you're like, okay, it's the 1st and I get paid on the 1st, then you put a little money from that, put a little $80. You get pay to get on the 8th, okay, put a little money for that, put a little $80. So it does matter on 1, the frequency of your bills, right? 2, when the bill is due. Is it due on the 15th? Because then you're really gonna have to hone into it on the next month. And this is only if you don't have any extra money. People say, I don't have extra money to pay off extra. That's okay. It's $400 regardless, okay? If we do 80 times 5, it's still $400. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you do it, like I said, you get this done this month and then you prepare yourself for the next month. Now, mind you, you don't have to do every week. I'm being extra. Sometimes you can do, at the very bare minimum, do 2 payments. If you can, if your lender allows you, right? If you do $200, that's splitting up your interest in half. And there's always 2 extra weeks. I'm sorry. How many weeks is there in 52 weeks? So there's always an extra week and a half. So you're basically going to end up be paying an extra payment anyway, right? And if you get paid weekly, even better. So this is just another tip and trick that I use to help me pay off my credit card debt, my credit cards debt, as well as my car loan debt. I hope this video helped you guys. If you guys have any questions, please leave them below. Make sure you go and check out the description to get all the resources that I have for you guys. And I hope to see you guys in another video. Bye.